Flocking for terrain and dioramas is extremely expensive. Not if you make your own with sawdust. Let me show you just how easy it is, and we'll make ourselves a little fairy ring in the process. Alright, what you're going to need, of course, is some sawdust, a sifter, some kind of container for mixing, like this popcorn jar. Be sure to wear a dust mask, this gets pretty messy. And whatever kind of paint you want to use. Get your kids to help out, this is messy and fun. Put some paint in a container. Put in some dish soap there. And some water. Come on. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. There we go. Mix that all up in your smaller container until it's nice and uniform. And then just add it to the sawdust there. I had to go back a couple times and add some more paint and water. This sawdust really soaks it up. Spread it out as thin as you're able to on some kind of tray and set it out in the sun to dry if you can. I repeated the process with a few different colors. Another good thing about this method is how forgiving it is. Just keep mixing and adding until it looks about right. I made the mistake of putting soaking wet sawdust on a paper plate. Don't do that. And when you're all done, leave them out in the sun to dry. This is what we ended up with here. Here's my nice basic green color. I have a darker green, this beige, kind of a dead green, and a nice crispy brown orange. Now, using this block of wood as a base, we can start our little diorama. And the first thing I want to do is mix up some texture paste. So I took some gesso, some brown paint, water, gave that a mix, added some sand and plaster. I stirred that until it was a nice half-melted ice cream consistency. And I dabbed it with a tissue to get rid of any unwanted texture. I put a little swirl here for our fairy ring. And I printed out this really cool dead stump. I'll link the STL down below. It's from a 3D scan of a real stump, so it looks really good. Now we wait for the plaster to dry. It helps if you have a friend to watch over the drying process. And I wasn't quick enough to stick this print down. The plaster was already starting to harden, so I was left with these big gaps. And I filled them with some sand and then hit it with super glue. And to add some of that nice sandy texture to the rest of this base, I used some PVA glue and sprinkled it on. After one pass of the glue and sand combination, I knocked off the excess and then I sprayed some watered down glue on top. Base coated the tree here in a similar way to how I did my tree in the last video. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. There's a link up here in the top. That was actually the first time I used this sawdust flock. Now it's time for the flocking. So, I picked up this little coffee mill from a secondhand shop for like $5. It works really great for blending things together. Put on some watered down glue, sprinkle it on, give it a tap, and that's looking pretty sweet. So let's continue on with the rest of the base. Starting out with this basic green color, And as you saw, I mixed a couple different colors in with it, just for some variety, a little bit more realism. Nature isn't all one color, being sure to leave our fairy ring circle open. Get rid of the excess here, and while that dries, I will get onto some mushrooms. I will also link to these on Thingiverse. They are free to download. I printed them at 100% scale, 120% scale, and 85% scale, and they all printed fine. I painted the mushrooms all white, and then I went over the caps with some yellow ochre. If you don't have access to a 3D printer, I actually made some mushrooms by hand in the last video as well. Right, for the fairy ring, I want to make it a little bit lighter than the base color. So I'm adding some of this dead green and a couple of the other lighter shades. And that's applied in the same way as the base color was. Give it a nice tap. That's looking pretty good. So after I arranged all the mushrooms here, you can see I decided to reinforce their bond with some superglue, and that was a mistake. Another mistake would be to enter a fairy ring, after which you would be forced to dance with the fey creatures, unable to stop until you go mad or perish of exhaustion. Not advisable. You can see what happened here. All of the superglue turned white. But I think we can fix that. Yeah, this is going to work nice. I can also go over that really dark green that I did not like. It stood out a bit too much. So I went ahead and used this lighter color flock to just blend in a lot of the stark contrast areas. Once that was done, I painted the base black. And in the words of Boy Lie Hobby Time, I called it good. I'm so glad to finally have flocking to use. I couldn't bring myself to pay the exorbitant prices that they charge in the hobby store for this stuff. Anyways, give it a go. Thanks for watching, subscribing. Leave me a comment down below to tell me what you would do with sawdust flock, and I'll see you on the next build.